Bitcoin fits in with this theme, and I want to equate, because I get a lot of outreach from people. So Bitcoin's been kind of stuck here for a period of time. I've said repeatedly that for me, Bitcoin is the purest AI trade.
Hello everyone, this is BTC Insight, and welcome to yet another deep dive into BTC Insight. Before we jump in, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't yet. You won't want to miss this.
Right now, the S&P 500's performance is being driven by a very small number of companies. Roughly 10% of stocks are carrying the index, and they're almost all connected to the AI supply chain. That's both powerful and risky. Visser explains that whenever the AI theme goes into profit-taking mode, the entire market feels it. Retail investors who have been aggressively chasing these names get hit the hardest. And because AI is such a dominant narrative, there aren't many other positive themes for investors to lean on when AI cools down.
October at this point, we're still above 80%. The rate cut happened. Everyone was positioned for it. All year, we've kind of had these events occur where retail, not the institutional side, because the institutional side is still fairly worried about AI. And there's been enough signs this week for people to be worried. Retail has been dominating the market this year, as we talked about last week with your brother and I. And I think there were signs, which I highlighted in the video last week, that all of the retail favorites, a lot of the meme stocks, crypto, everything had just a really rapid rise leading into the Fed rate cut. And so when you get an event like this, everyone was talking about sell the news. The market really hasn't fallen much. We've just had 3 days of weakness going into today. But I do think retail as a whole was a little euphoric going in. You saw a pullback. I don't think it has much to do with the Fed and getting through that. I think we started this week off with more AI fears from the institutional side. And I think they've kind of triggered the need for retail to look for the next catalyst. So that's all that's really gone on.
Bassett even said it was priced in, 25 bips.
25 was priced in. But I do think people should take one thing into context as we go through this. Corrections are going to happen because the market is being driven by one investment theme. And until we start to see the PMIs broaden out, which I think will happen, as I've said repeatedly, over the course of the next year, the S&P 500 is being driven by about 10% of the stocks. They're all related to the supply chain of AI. So whenever the AI theme, let's say, runs into profit-taking mode for a period of time, and retail's been all over the AI theme. They've been all over Palantir. They've been all over NVIDIA, Micron, all of these names. Once you reach a point where profit-taking is just normal, I think you're going to see the entire space come down because there's really nothing positive for people to hang their hats on outside of AI at this point. Bitcoin fits in with this theme, and I want to equate, because I get a lot of outreach from people. So Bitcoin's been kind of stuck here for a period of time. I've said repeatedly that for me, Bitcoin is the purest AI trade as AI goes through the complete disruption of all businesses. And the only moat that's left at the end of the day is a store of value that is in the digital economy. Gold will continue to have its strength, but at the same point, Bitcoin fits in. So whenever the AI trade reaches a profit-taking mode where retail gets hurt, I think everyone should expect Bitcoin to go down. It's not just Bitcoin, it's Solana, it's Ethereum. There's been a lot of speculation in the Bitcoin miners. I think we just reached a point where, again, we've sold off. The AI trade is still in the very early stages, despite all the fears that come out. So it makes sense for people, for Bitcoin to have corrections. And I just want to remind people, NVIDIA's up over 1,000% since ChatGPT's launch. During that time period, which is less than 3 years, we're almost at the 3-year anniversary of ChatGPT's launch, you've had 5 corrections of 20% or more in NVIDIA before it went back up to all-time highs. Bitcoin's going to be the same thing. So you can take NVIDIA, you can take Bitcoin, you can kind of put them together as there. And I think people should start realizing that that is the reality, is that we're in a situation right now where, as NVIDIA goes, as the AI trade goes, Bitcoin to some degree is going to be part of that as well.
Here's where Visser takes a unique stance. He argues that Bitcoin is the purest AI trade. Why? Because as AI disrupts nearly every business model on the planet, the only true moat left at the end of the day is a digital store of value. Gold will always play a role, but Bitcoin represents the store of value for the digital economy. Visser even draws a parallel between Bitcoin and Nvidia's price action since the launch of ChatGPT. Nvidia has risen more than 1,000% in under 3 years, but along the way it experienced at least 5 major corrections of 20% or more.
One of the hard things about valuing companies is the growth rate that you're going to see. What Nvidia proved to be up 1,000% and still have PEs being too cheap 3 years from now is that their earnings grew rapidly. And the only way your earnings grow that rapidly is to have exponential growth. Exponential growth is what is driving AI. So I think the problem is for people, it's really hard for the human brain to comprehend something that's never happened before in time. There's never been a $4 trillion company on its way to 10 trillion. There's never been the kind of growth that we've seen from a company because eventually the law of diminishing returns does kick in historically. That's not the case now. So I think this week in particular, we started getting the chatter that, oh, NVIDIA is just like Cisco back in 1999 to 2000. This is not even close to the same thing, in my opinion, because of where AI is, which is still in the very, very early innings. We still have a demand greater than supply problem that is evident, and anyone can tell you that. But if the sell side street isn't doing it, if X isn't doing it, just go ask ChatGPT, what are the signs that would happen when the supply of GPUs is greater than the demand? You wouldn't be using VO3 for 8 seconds and then be cut off. ChatGPT wouldn't have a governor on deep research the way it does now relative to what it was 3 months ago. I could go on and on. There wouldn't be bottlenecks in high bandwidth memory in terms of microns reporting. Everything would be different, and this is all in front of humanoids. This is all in front of robo-taxis. This is all in front of the next stage of AI. So I just think for people that are going through this, remember, exponential growth, which is what we're seeing, means exponential changes in certain companies' businesses that are tied to AI. And if you don't want exponential growth or you want to fade something, go fade forward. Well, so far this month, I think as of yesterday, even with Bitcoin being down where it was, I think it's still flattish for the month. I think stocks are up for the month. So I'm not sure September is going to finish down for the month. But I do think as we get through kind of the shutdown fears, which are now starting to percolate a little bit more, and for people who, you know, we haven't really been together on this this weekly during a real shutdown, there's got to be at least a 30-40% chance of a 1 week to longer shutdown in the government, just based on how polarized things are. A lot of times this thing gets solved right at the very end, so I wouldn't be surprised. But historically, it just doesn't matter for markets, but the fear factor's there. I think the more important event is happening at the end of October, and this is where I would expect that people are going to start to get more positive. The first thing is we still have the possibility of another Fed rate cut. The economy is fine. We just came out with a GDP of 3.8%, and now the GDP now is above 3.3, and that was before the personal spending numbers came out better than expected today. At the end of the month, Donald Trump will be headed out to the APEC summit. President Xi will be at the APEC summit. I believe that China and the US are headed towards a deal, a structure that will allow them to be working together and not decoupling. I still think people believe decoupling is a possibility, and I think there's a chance here that a deal between China and the US would get rid of hostility fears that are out there and kind of get people to resolve that maybe for the next few years of Donald Trump's presidency, China and the US will coexist, as I've said, in mediation before a divorce that'll happen at some point. But that just means the world can grow and we don't have to worry about kind of tail risks that would come through. I think that would be a trigger point in the next catalyst for the market as we go into the final couple months of the year.
Visser's message is clear. Corrections are not the end of the story. They are part of the natural cycle of exponential growth. Whether it's Nvidia, Bitcoin, or the broader AI trade, volatility is the cost of participating in a once-in-a-lifetime technological revolution. So if you're worried about short-term weakness, step back and remember, we are still at the beginning of this era. The AI wave is not a bubble. It's a structural transformation. And Bitcoin, strangely enough, might be its purest expression.
That's it for today's look into BTC Insight. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay on top of all the latest insights. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll catch you in the next one.